Hi, my name is Will Pincek, and I work for the Education Services Department for Juniper Networks. Today I'm going to talk about setting the virtual chassis mode for EX and QFX switches. This can apply to either virtual chassis or virtual chassis fabric. So we'll start by talking about what are the 4 different virtual chassis modes that are possible. So QFX and EX series switches can be placed into one of 4 different modes. The default mode is virtual chassis with similar devices. You can see the current mode that a switch is in by saying show virtual chassis mode. And here it shows you the current mode, which is virtual chassis with similar devices. That means that it expects that all devices that will join this virtual chassis will be of the same type. If this is a QFX 5100, it would expect all QFX 5100 devices to be a part of this virtual chassis, or else the virtual chassis won't form properly. So this is the command you use to determine the mode. There's another command as well, I'll show you here in just a second. And then another output of this command is what the future mode will be. So the commands below actually set the future mode. To get the future mode to be the current mode, you will have to reboot the box. Okay, so you can, prior to rebooting, you can set the mode that you want it to be in the future. But then you would want to immediately issue the reboot command, assuming that's what you wanted to do. I would never recommend setting the future mode and then just leaving it there, because any reboot in the future will cause the future mode to become the current mode. So again, the default mode is virtual chassis with all same devices. And then another option for virtual chassis is mixed mode. That is where you'll have a mix and match of different types of switch chassis types. So like for instance a mix of QFX 5100s and EX 4300s as part of a virtual chassis. So you can change the mode by issuing the request virtual chassis mode command. Here I specified mixed, and that will change a virtual chassis to a virtual chassis mixed mode, assuming you're going to reboot after this. If I want to change it to virtual chassis fabric with similar devices, I simply issue request virtual chassis mode fabric. Here, if I want to do a virtual chassis with mixed devices, I would say mixed fabric on the end. Now all of these commands can have an additional command added to the end called reboot, and that will have your router automatically reboot. But here I did not. Now here's another example where my current virtual chassis mode is virtual chassis with similar devices, but I went and I did a request virtual chassis fabric mixed, and then I realized, oh, I don't want mixed. To get rid of the mixed portion of that, I would say request virtual chassis mode mixed disable to get rid of the mixed. And here if I say show virtual chassis mode, my future mode now becomes fabric with similar devices. It's no longer mixed here. So that's how you adjust. So here I'm going to do a little example. So let me bring up CLI here for a QFX 5100. Okay, if I issue show virtual chassis mode, here this QFX is currently in virtual chassis with similar devices, and the future mode is the same. Okay, so they match. In normal operation, this is how you want them. Another command that you can issue to see the current mode is to say show virtual chassis status. When I issue that command, I see that this chassis is in non-mixed virtual chassis, which is the same. Virtual chassis with similar devices. Okay, so I can see the current mode either here or here. Either way works. Now the future mode, let's say I want to change it now. Instead of a virtual chassis, I want to run virtual chassis fabric. I could say request virtual chassis mode fabric. Okay, and I could hit enter, or I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to say mixed. Now I've changed the future mode. So if I say show virtual chassis mode, now I've set my future mode to fabric with mixed devices. But again, I made a mistake. So let me get out of that. I'm gonna say request virtual chassis mode mixed disable. Now that's going to remove the mixed out of that future mode. And if I say show virtual chassis mode, Here I'm now in Virtual Chassis Fabric with similar devices. Now again, that's the future mode, so I need a reboot. I could have issued the original command with a reboot on the end, or as another option I can just do a request system reboot, which is what I'll do here. And again, our expectation is when this thing comes back up out of reboot, it won't be in Virtual Chassis mode anymore, it'll be in Fabric mode. So let's do that. Request system reboot, and we'll go ahead and reboot it. Okay. And now we're going to wait a few minutes, and then we'll see what happens after the reboot. Okay, now our QFX is coming out of the reboot. It took a few minutes. I'll log back in. And if I say show virtual chassis mode, we should have matching modes, which we do. And notice now it's in Virtual Chassis Fabric with similar devices, which is what we expected. Again, I can say show Virtual Chassis status, and sure enough, I'm in non-mixed Fabric mode now. Okay, which is the same. This equates to what's in the current mode here. That's the same thing. Okay, I hope that helps, and we'll see you on the next Learning Byte.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Network's certification program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence. And the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.